Right, have we got people watching? Good. Welcome back everyone to the Hobart Parks Challenge, my attempt at visiting every single park, reserve and playground in Hobart in a single day. In part 2 I dealt with undulation on a large scale as I ticked off numerous parks in suburbs such as West Hobart, North Hobart, Newtown, Mount Stewart and Lenna Valley. We returned to the ride as I approached the John Turnbull Dog Park, having visited 51 of the 104 parks so far and ridden over 46 kilometres out of 74. Now this wasn't my finest moment. As I approached the lady with the pram, I initially tried to head to the left of her. When she looked around, I tried to go around her on the right hand side. Unfortunately for me, she started moving to the right, so I veered back to the left and the bike did not like that. Thankfully I was fine and I didn't even scratch myself. I was able to get back up and walk the bike down to the dog park. And there you are, this dog park is number 52, halfway through the parks. Bit of an unceremonious, ungracious way to reach the halfway mark by having the bike skid and me kind of fall. After my embarrassing fall, I left behind the John Turnbull Parks and made my way up onto Creek Road. The ride was gently sloping downhill and there weren't very many cars driving past, which I appreciated. At the St John's Park and Southern Cross Care facilities, I turned off Creek Road and made my way over to a nearby oval. Alright, this is Newtown Oval. I'm in the back half of the parks now. You've probably noticed I'm wearing like an umpiring shirt, because I do umpiring, but I've actually never umpired at this ground before. But it is one of the parks. From St John's Avenue, I reached Newtown Road and decided to use the pedestrian crossing as traffic was flowing considerably. I'm going to be making them wait. How long I have to wait? I don't know. Here we go. As I crossed over to Tower Road, this guy in the Subaru didn't appear to notice my presence. Thankfully I wasn't heading straight down, or I might have been cleaned up. Technically I think I had right of way then, and now he's just going to pull over without indicating. Good work. Oh no, he's not. With that fright behind me, I cruised along the wide expanse of Tower Road and had some fun speeding down Swanston Street. Next up, a controversial entry onto the list. This is a small little kind of park on the corner of Risdon Road and Swanston Street. There's no sign or anything giving it a name, but I've decided to put it on the list of parks purely because that bin is there. That bin tells me that the council manages park. They obviously come and empty the bins, so it's if they manage it, then it goes on the list. The rubbish bin theory comes from the fact I found a number of grassy areas with picnic benches, such as this place in Mount Nelson, when I was trawling through Street View during the planning process. I had to make a ruling somewhere, and I felt the addition of a rubbish bin meant the council managed it regularly. If I was including this though, should I have included a couple of other places? There's a rubbish bin here in the railway roundabout, but I didn't add that to the list. Same with this place on Sandy Bay Road. Regardless of whatever you may think, my opinion on the day was that this park was worthy of an addition. Back to the ride now, and after dealing with this driver who had decided to use a footpath as a parking space and was just sitting in the car watching me, I reached the next stop with ease. Idiots, I should say. Brooker Highway I rode, using the grass as a shortcut and heading onto Marine Esplanade. The next stop was a surprisingly nice place to visit. I believe this place is Newtown Bay Reserve, right on the waterfront. You've got the grass areas behind me, a barbecue, seats, and waterfront views, as I said. Back on Queen's Walk now, and I rode on past the cemetery, climbing gently. For a while I considered adding the cemetery to the list, but chose not to in the end, as it didn't really classify as a park, reserve, and definitely not playground. I also reached the 2/3 mark of the ride in terms of distance. The busy Cornelian Bay was my next place to visit, and another stop would be required. Cornelian Bay, it's a very popular playground and foreshore reserve. That's what I'm calling it, the Cornelian Bay Foreshore Reserve, to encompass the playground, the tracks and the beach. I'm standing here on the Cornelian Bay Oval, so that's another 2 parks down. GoPro spare battery is about to die, so it's onto the power banks. I used electrical tape to attach the power bank to the bike, as it will be acting as a battery for the GoPro from now on. Any rattling you hear between now and the end of the ride is a result of the open flap. Riding across the thick grass was a challenge, surprisingly, before I utilised the pedestrian tunnel under the Brooker Highway to reach Bell Street. From here I had to cross over to Bellevue Parade and ran into an old friend. Oh goody, more stairs. As I climbed up Bishop Street, some old memories came flooding back. Memories of the reverse parallel kind. Stuffed up my peas test around here, the parallel park. With those wonderful thoughts in my mind, I reached the top of the street where another unusual intersection greeted me. Strange old intersection, but there's a few of them around here. Another surprise was a bit further along. Gee, big army truck. And soon enough I was back on Swanston Street and arriving at my next park. Oh man, uphill. Swanston Street Playground. I'm not sure if you can actually read that sign with the glare of the sun. But this is one of the parks that didn't come up on the Hobart City Council website on the list of parks. So there are only 78 on that website, but I've come up with 104 in total from looking at satellite imagery and Street View. So yeah, it was a good find really. I just saw the pine bark on the satellite. It was just after 1 PM when I left the playground, as I continued to follow Swanston Street. I had ridden over 50 kilometres by this point and was starting to feel like reaching the end of the ride in a single day was a very achievable ambition. I then made a sharp right-hand turn onto Sunnyside Road, where I returned to Newtown Road near its intersection with Argyle Street. We've got Seymour Street Playground there, and straight behind me is Stoke Street Reserve. Another 2 parks down. Riding through Stoke Street Reserve was easy enough to begin with, but a single step became too much for me. No, that's done it. Once I finally got back onto the road, I crested the hill and began a speedy downhill ride past the Ridges Hotel to reach a famous venue and the next stop on my journey. The magnificent North Hobart Oval, my favourite place to umpire.
Well, it's Gillespie Jones who just couldn't get the handle on it. Kick goals round 2 against the Giants, round 3 in the rout against the Tigers.
Wonderful place, isn't it? Well, it certainly is if you follow AFL. Unfortunately for me, the GoPro did not record any riding between North Hobart Oval and this footbridge over the Brooker Highway. Evidently I didn't press the record button hard enough, So what you're seeing here is me pressing the record button, thinking that I've finished the recording, when in fact it's just begun.
Unfortunately, it wasn't recording between here and North Hobart Oval, but I've got to go over the Brooker Highway. Luckily, they've been kind enough to put in this bike ramp. The steps, they're going to be the death of me. Oh, that's a bit of an issue, the pedals.
I crossed over the Brooker Highway after walking up the staircase, and I continued to walk up the hill onto the Queen's Domain as it was still quite steep and the switchbacks were tight. If I were going downhill, I wouldn't have had any issues. Soon enough, I was at Upper Domain Road, well and truly onto the Queen's Domain. In case you're wondering, the Queen's Domain itself was not considered a park. Instead, the myriad of individual ovals, reserves and other sites were included on the list. One of these parks was the Domain Crossroads Oval, which I rode across.
So this is one park, and the Crossroads down there, that's another one, even though they're essentially the same place. Listed as two different parks.
As you heard me just say, this lower oval was actually another park, the Soldiers Memorial Oval. Strange as that may seem, the two different ovals have their own links on the council's website, so it was considered two different parks. From here, I worked my way over to another popular facility via some gravel tracks and a car park, which also marked 3/4 of the ride completed. The Domain Athletic Centre was pretty empty, apart from a couple of people in the distance. My next stop was Legacy Park, a fairly new play area that had only been open for a year or two. After knocking off 4 parks in the space of 5 minutes or less, I returned to Upper Domain Road, working my way downhill past gravel parking areas to reach another football oval.
TCA ground, another nice venue. Haven't umpired here for a while because it's a regional venue, not state league, but yeah, I know it's had a resurfacing recently.
I decided to take a bit of an off-road route to reach the next park, which was a stone's throw away from the TCA ground.
Pretty decent playground, really. Crap, it opens in this way.
After eventually managing to open the gate, I cruised on down Aberdeen Street through the small inner city suburb of Glebe. Just before the aquatic centre, I branched off the road and into my next park.
The Rose Gardens. It's another one I'm just going to cut straight through. Shame I don't get to go across that new bridge. I actually haven't been over it yet. Oh well, time is the important factor for me, so actually, you know what, we'll go down this way.
Why I decided to go the long way round, I don't know.
Cut back up here.
Anyway, I rode underneath the Bridge of Remembrance, rode along on the footpath, then headed onto a gravel path that ran parallel with the Tasman Highway, as I had to make a significant detour to reach the next park. After carefully navigating my way through the barriers, I arrived at Lower Domain Road, where a straightforward ride to the aforementioned next stop was in order.
Beaumaris Zoo, or well, the site of it anyway. That is the big detour I had to make. But the last Tasmanian tiger in captivity died back in the 1930s. There's not really much left, is there?
Once back on Davies Avenue, I chose not to use the McVilly Drive underpass, even though it would probably have been quicker. This was because I wanted to ride over the Bridge of Remembrance. The bridge's construction divided Hobartians, with some saying it was unnecessary as the underpass was so close, while others appreciated how it connected the Soldiers Memorial Avenue with my next park, the Cenotaph. Cenotaph, a place for reflection. At the Cenotaph, I gave myself a bit of a breather. It was 1:45 PM, so I still had 3 hours of daylight left to ride the final 15 kilometres or so, as well as visit the final 33 parks.
Sorry, excuse me, will I be able to sneak through? No. Sorry, I don't have a bell.
It was going to be an interesting next few kilometres though, with the adversities of the central business district in my immediate sights. Let's finish this off.